investigate and evaluate potential legal action. And in a moment, we'll turn to the families and they'll tell you what their response is to what they've learned and what they're still learning. Understand that the report has not been made available but for about an hour or two, and it is voluminous, as you've heard. So most of our reaction is really based on what we heard from the Attorney General and his team last night. And so I want to talk about three things. The first thing I want to say is that the families appreciate the Attorney General's commitment to seeing this investigation through. For families in this situation, transparency and comfort and knowing that your government or your state is listening to you and are concerned about what you and your families went through is critically important. They haven't gotten a lot of that from the state of Texas, so for them, that is very much appreciated. And it was clear not just that the DOJ has taken this investigation very seriously, but that the Attorney General himself, I think you saw it, has expressed great empathy, and that's also very appreciated by the families. There are limitations, though. These families didn't need a 400 or 500-page government report to learn that law enforcement failed them in a historic way. They didn't need the report to tell them that law enforcement violated its most sacred responsibility, and that is to protect our children in a time of great need. They didn't need that. Why didn't they need that? Because they were there. Some had AR-15s pointed at them as they desperately tried to help when law enforcement wouldn't. They were there as their children were being killed while law enforcement was paralyzed. They were there. So they did not need to learn that. But the details of the investigation will come out for whatever value they provide. It's important to understand go back and let's just refresh our recollection about what happened that day. Within minutes, really, hundreds of heavily armed law enforcement officers were there from all different agencies. The DEA was there. The Border Patrol was there. The Uvalde police were there. The school police were there. The county police were there. Texas Marshals were there. It was a convergence of heavily armed and mostly very well-trained law enforcement agents. And you would think that they were fighting to protect a major army from invading us on our borders, as we would like our law enforcement to protect us. But who was on the other side of this epic battle? What were they afraid of? Were they afraid of an 18-year-old kid? This 18-year-old, let's remember, was about 5'5" or 5'6". He was 140 pounds, soaking wet. Were they really afraid of this kid? No. They were afraid of his weapon. And it turns out that even some of these well-trained officers are human beings. And guess what? We've learned from this event, from Parkland and other events where law enforcement got cold feet. These people were scared. They were scared because they're human beings, and they were scared of getting killed. And they waited around while somebody else was going to be brave enough to intervene. The questions that are not answered in this report are significantly more important than the questions that are. This 18-year-old kid was able to walk into a store down the street and acquire a military weapon, a Daniel Defense AR-15. And within about a week, he acquired another one. The day he turned 18, he had made his decision long in advance. In fact, he had ordered 60 30-round magazines, and they were delivered to his home. How did that happen? Where's the government investigation on how this kid got this firepower? The other thing that happened is he ordered over 1,700 rounds of ammunition from an online ammo dealer. How could that happen? How could that happen? Where's the investigation into that? How did this 18-year-old kid even know enough to know how to equip himself in this way? What happened? What are the means by which gun companies are marketing these weapons to our children? How are they reaching them? Where's the role of marketing and the gun companies in this report? There's no fault or investigation whatsoever. The truth is you can respond to an active shooting, but let's not delude ourselves. You might be able to save a few lives, but we can't accept that that's the best we can do. Over 12 years ago, or about 12 years ago, almost 12 years ago, after the Sandy Hook shooting, shattered families went to the United States Senate and they begged, they pleaded, they said to our elected officials, it's too late for us. Our children were just killed by a kid, a troubled kid under 21 who used an AR-15 to kill our children. They said, help us. You can't help us, but you can help us by helping others. You can help us by help. And Congress turned their back on the Sandy Hook families. And Congress turned their back on the Sandy Hook families. And because of that, and by the way, the Sandy Hook families weren't the only families to plead, to beg, to say, let's protect our children. There were other families. Every mass shooting that occurs, almost, there are families pleading with the government to do something. Parkland families said the same thing. They said, okay, how about now? How about now? Let's limit the access to these weapons to children, to kids 18, 19, 20 years old. And Congress thumbed their nose at the Parkland families. And Merrick, the Attorney General's here. He's done nobody can fault the Attorney General for his commitment to this, for his concern for these families. It's very moving, and his entire office, and I applaud them in this effort. But the Attorney General wouldn't be here. None of his team would be here. I wouldn't be standing here. Most importantly, these wonderful families wouldn't be here, standing here pleading, talking about what happened that day. You wouldn't be here. But if Congress had just listened, instead of just listened to the Sandy Hook families, if they had just listened to Parkland, you know who would be here? Eva Morales, Irma Garcia, Zaya Garcia, Xavier Lopez, Amory Jo Garza, Jose Flores Jr., Alitha Ramirez, Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez, Eliana Torres, Eliana Garcia, Rogelio Torres, Jacqueline Casares, Jayla Nicole, Silvera, Jace Nuevanos, Lexi Rubio, Tess Mata, McKenna Elrod, Neve Bravo, Layla Salazar, Maite Rodriguez, and Miranda Mathis. Think about that. This shooting doesn't happen if our government had just listened to these families, or and not just our government, but if the state of Texas had just even done the paltry thing of making it, even raising the age to 21, they would all be alive. And isn't that such a small price to pay? Yeah. We're going to turn it over now. Sorry? Yeah. We're going to turn it over now to our wonderful families who would like to speak and express themselves. And I'll introduce Kimberly Rubio.
Folks, a few families will speak, and then we'll do questions at the end. Okay.
Reading this report this morning, I read that Pete directed officers intending to gain entry into the classroom to stop. That no leader effectively questioned the decision and lack of urgency of UCISD PD Chief Arredondo and UPD Acting Chief Mariano Vargas toward entering classrooms 111 and 112. And that leadership can arise regardless of rank and title. I hope that the failures end today and the local officials do what wasn't done that day. Do right by the victims and survivors of Robb Elementary. Terminations, criminal prosecutions. And our state and federal government enact sensible gun laws, because Robb Elementary began the day an 18-year-old wasn't allowed to purchase an AR-15.
Most importantly, from what we've seen with this report, and I commend the DOJ on doing this, is that although there isn't every name of the officers that were there so that we can hold them accountable, because we have to do our own digging most of the time, there are names that are named. And it is time, because our community is so divided because of this, because they don't want to believe that the people that they grew up with failed our children and they stand against us. I'm hoping that they read this and they see Johnny Phil's name, or Mariano Pargas's, who is a county commissioner right now, or Constable Zamora, who is running for re-election. There are names in there, and the community needs to see this, and y'all need, because the DOJ stamp is on there, maybe y'all will start taking us seriously now, instead of telling us to move on, telling us to sweep it under the rug, and not doing a damn thing about it. We need our community. It's hard enough waking up every day and continuing to walk out on these streets and walk to an HEB or drive to an HEB and see a cop that was standing there while our babies were murdered and bleeding out. It's hard enough that. But this community doesn't care, and I hope this makes y'all. I also hope that this lights a fire up under the district attorney's ass, because we know that she has not done a damn thing, and we refuse to accept that. Do your job.
Does anyone else want to talk before we take questions? Let's try to go one at a time and just introduce yourselves so they know who they're talking to. Where do we want to start? Shimon.
Hi, yeah. So
Just let them know who you are, Shimon.
Shimon Prokopez, CNN. Do you guys feel that the report went far enough in naming people and holding people accountability? Because, as we know, the DPS had the largest number of law enforcement officials outside of the CBP. And there's a lot of video and a lot of information about their actions that day. But it doesn't seem that this report really touches on their actions that day. It seems to focus mostly on the local officers, Arredondo and Chiefs. Are you concerned about that? Just maybe some reaction to that.
I don't see
Would you guys mind coming up to the mics?
I don't understand why they are allowed privacy. My child, their children, they are named in this report because they are dead. Everybody should have been named.
Do you feel, Kim, if I can follow up, that somehow maybe DPS is off the hook on this when you look at this report? Or any of you want to just
I mean, it's kind of hard to answer the question because we've only been given an hour and a half to kind of just look through the report. So we don't even know if they are mentioned in there or not. We would hope that they are because they were there, so we hope that they would be accountable for their actions as well.
Ronnie, following up on that, Monica Madden, KXAN and Nexstar. I know that you said you're still sifting through the report and everything, but were you hoping that the Attorney General would have addressed a lot of more of the aftermath, the delays in the DA's investigation, DPS's investigation into its officers' actions and accountability? Were you hoping that he would address more of that publicly?
I mean, of course we would have. We're grateful that we got what we have right now because it's probably the most updated information that any of us have gotten since May 24th. So we're very appreciative of what he's done right now. But yeah, we would have liked to have more information.
The other.
BBC Radio. Did you learn anything new from what you've seen in this report? Is there anything that you didn't know before?
We knew as families, just kind of talking amongst each other, we knew the failures that had happened. We just kind of, it makes more clarity now because it's written and now it's set in stone, and what we thought is true. So
I did learn something.
you did.
I didn't realize that the scene was compromised.
What? I'm sorry.
The scene was compromised, so that there was people that shouldn't have been there that were entering the classroom. That's mentioned in the report.
And was that, how did that make you feel to learn that?
And I want to continue reading more when we're done here.
Do a couple
Do you-
more and then we'll go read.
Two quick ones. News 4, WAI KBB in San Antonio. In all of your guys' mind, is there any question left that the DA should have all that she needs, all that she is required to have for her investigation to be able to pursue criminal charges now at this point?
What else does she need? Yeah, I mean, this is probably the most extensive piece that we have about all of the failures that happened that day. What else does she possibly need to prosecute or to remove these people from their positions of power when they can't even do their jobs?
Yami Virgen, KBBWAI. How safe are the children of Uvalde right now?
I think the point of this is that none of us are safe. That's what, Josh just mentioned. None of us are safe because these weapons are on the streets.
Let's go right down here, right? Sorry.
Guys, Amanda Anderson from the Sport Box San Antonio. I've talked to so many of you over the past year. A lot of you recently have expressed concerns about the 2-year mark, meaning that the statute of limitations for misdemeanors will expire. Are you hoping that this will potentially fast track the upcoming DA investigation, the ongoing DA investigation?
Well, even the DA can't get fully in our way of an investigation. But it ought to be, to your point, it ought to be said that the DA, with the help of the AG here in Texas, is fighting the disclosure of a lot of this important information. So the DA is effectively, the DA has a job to do. We understand that, but she's locked up this information that these families deserve to have access to evaluate their legal rights. There's no reason why she can't do her job so that we can do ours, and so that these families get the information they deserve to make the decisions they have to make.
Assuming she's still giving you no timeline updates whatsoever.
I mean, I think at this point, it's not a good bet to bet on the DA's timelines.
Over here, Sergio Martinez Beltran with FDR's Texas Newsroom. Quick question, you talk about how you're representing the family, you're trying to conduct an investigation. What's the purpose of it? Is it potentially to sue the local law enforcement agencies? Like, what are you hoping?
Well, it's similar. I mean, of course, the DOJ looks at the criminal, the DA is looking at criminal allegations. But the other facet to these incidents is what went wrong, and how can we hold those people accountable? And the traditional other means that we do so, which is by bringing legal action against them, so that there's another incentive to clean up their act, right? And so so we have to look at all the angles here. What contributed to this? And it should be noted that when many of us were growing up, maybe am I the oldest person here? But when many of us were growing up, we didn't have these routine mass shootings with AR-15s. But guess what? AR-15s were available. So something's changed. And so one of the big things that we've seen in Sandy Hook and Parkland and other cases is that what's changed is the way these weapons are pushed on youth. And this is a tragic and unnecessary example of the repercussions of that. When I was growing up, nobody knew what an AR-15 was, and here every kid of a certain age, especially boys, know what they are because they're being courted, and they're being courted with other actors like social media and et cetera. So these gun companies are really pushing these products on kids for these types of missions.
William Alotto from the Texas Tribune, are you suggesting that you're going to pursue charges against gun manufacturers?
Well, I don't bring charges, but fair enough. But the legal issues that we're under consideration now, I can't really speak about beyond just the big picture type of things that you have to look at in an incident like this. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into something like this.
For the families now, what are the next steps? As we now have one of these investigations out, there's numerous. The DPS is still doing their investigation. We obviously have the DA who is still doing theirs. What is next for all of you as you continue to try and move forward and, one, put the day behind you, but two, create change?
I think we're going to continue fighting. We're going to continue fighting that some type of change is made. in honor of our kids. We have nothing left but to fight for them. We are their voices now, so we're going to continue.
Can I just get a reaction from someone, the Attorney General, having him stand there, very significant moment when he says that lives, had officers follow protocol procedure, lives could have potentially been saved. How was that? How was that for you to hear him say that?
I mean, how do you want us to react to that?
What, because so many people have not wanted to say that here, from the law enforcement officials.
It was pretty hard. I mean, respectful for telling us, but I mean, it was pretty hard, to hear that. When he sits there and says that, lives could have been saved. I mean, I just get a little closer to the face. Like, I just couldn't believe it. For these officers to sit there and just not do anything, and still be out here, on the streets like nothing happened, and my daughter's gone. It was hard. It was hard.
I think we're gonna leave it there, folks.
Okay,
And let the families know.
I think he wants to.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm the grandfather of Layla Salazar, and this mass shooting here. Why is it that our officers got rewarded instead of being punished? They got raises instead of getting demotions. That's what I don't understand. The DPS major there, sitting behind Abbott, got a $40,000 raise. The Texas Ranger that had been suspended a year ago, fired, he's still getting paid over $100,000. Why are we paying these officers and then you want us to trust them with our families when they're getting paid to do nothing? We lost 19 children and 2 parents and another husband that died right after. So really, I don't see where we should be rewarding our officers, because I was at the courthouse when they had the commissioner's court, and they asked me if they should have a raise, and I told them straight out, no. They don't deserve a raise. If you cannot serve and protect the people, these were children. All they wanted to do was play. There's no reason this should have happened. They should have did. They ignored the training that was supposed to be since Columbine, and they ignored it. There's too many failures in this situation that happened here in Uvalde, and for them to be getting rewarded for it, I do not agree.
What's your name and last name?
My name is Vincent Salazar. I'm the grandfather of Layla Salazar.
Thank you, Vincent. I'm sorry.
Where's yours? This is not yours, right? Blade, this is yours, right? Yeah. All right. We're gonna go back.
Come up here.